Hello everyone and welcome to our Game Week 29 preview show. I'm Chris, Kieran is here too. How are you today, Geek?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to getting this Game Week out of the way a bit really because my squad looks a bit depleted and crap and I'm feeling like wildcard territories soon for me, so yeah, the quicker we can get this blank out of the way the better. How about you? Are you thinking that too? Get this one out of the way?
I'm obviously we'll talk about it later, but my strategy I think has changed a little bit. So
Okay.
yeah, not too bad.
Let's do that. All right, let's just jump on. Let's have a look because the game week's obviously in progress. So we've got like provisional scores now ahead of Luton and Bournemouth tonight.
Mm.
Do you want to kick off and what happened and what you did?
Yeah, what did I do? I took Dubravka out for Neto, and then I did KDB for Madison. Annoying that Foden is the one that blanked and KDB got returned, but obviously Madison came in, did well. Nice differential. His ownership's only at like 14%, and most of them are probably dead teams. So yeah, that helped a lot. But yeah, thank God I got the Spurs players because nobody else did a single thing. So yeah, 41 points is basically a grey arrow. I've gone basically nowhere. And obviously Solanke and only Neto and Doughty tonight. So only 3 players in the double left compared to some who've got like 6 and stuff. So yeah, another red arrow's coming. A red arrow probably next week too, or this week coming in the free hit. So or the 29 at least, obviously. So yeah, hopefully the red arrows will diminish once I sort of play the chips later in the season. I can actually start rising somewhere. Would be nice.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of feel like it's inevitable I'm going to get a red arrow this week with only 2 doublers in my case, and probably a red arrow next week because I'm not going to have like a minimum of 11. But then the idea obviously is that I'm going to get a better upside between game week 30 and the end of the season. But yeah, I was the same as you really. Like, going into ending the show last week, I was pretty set I was going to do Solanke in. But I was looking at maybe Morris captain, which at the moment would be good, but obviously we still don't know how that's going to end up tonight. And then the other transfer I nearly made, I was like set on getting rid of Gordon for a double game week player. Bart, I was really strong on Barkley on Saturday, and I thought now I'll just do Son. And it was lucky I did because he's the only player that's returned for me this game week after the having a good couple of weeks. It's been a bit of a big red arrow, but what are you expecting from, we're not going to talk about it specifically, but we could now. What are you expecting from tonight's game, the Solanke and Morris and Neto returns?
I mean, there's been talk of Neto being dropped for some reason.
No.
I mean, hopefully not.
Starting that.
I don't know. I expect that's just Twitter rumors, and like he's not. I think he's missed 2 games all season when he was injured, so like I can't see that actually happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, Solanke maybe a return. Doughty was probably a blank. So other than that, like Neto clean sheet would be nice if that happens, but I'm not expecting it. So just a Morris blank would just be fantastic for me. That's all I really want. The rest of it, like I don't really care.
I had a look back on. I don't know why I didn't talk about this in the notes last time, but I actually had a look at what the state the abandoned game was in when they obviously cancelled it. And that game, I don't know if you'd remembered, but like Doherty had an assist in that game.
Did he?
Yeah, okay. And I think it was 1-1. Solanke had just scored a penalty.
Solanke scored, yeah.
That's right. So yeah, maybe that's some foretelling of what happens tonight. But I'm obviously hoping the exact opposite because Morris is my differential. So just need him to get something. Luton have scored 15 games in a row. I saw earlier in the Premier League. So I'd be surprised based on how poor Bournemouth were the other day against Sheffield United. And they got sort of a couple of their main defender out. So yeah, I hope it's just gonna be an exciting game, to be honest.
Yeah, your talk of Neto on getting a clean sheet versus Sheffield United and then a few points. So it's just like for the Bournemouth defense, like convinced me of getting Neto and conceding. What was it, 2 or was it 3 against
2? Yeah.
2 against Sheffield United. Just atrocious.
But he's got good points though, to be fair. I was looking at Areola thinking like last week, is it worth a hit for the goalkeeper? Because I didn't do that in the Liverpool game week for Kelleher, and he got like 1 point more, and I'd expect Neto's probably gonna get 5, so it's gonna be like a net game of 1. Woohoo!
Yay.
Yeah. All right, let's crack on and talk about the fixtures this game week. A picture of Son there to lead us, but we'll talk about Spurs towards the end. Shall we talk about Luton Forest, because this is one we kind of know, like, let's say the least about, because we've got one game to go for Luton.
Yeah, so obviously, there's obviously the game tonight, but so I'll give you the stats of what we've got so far. So Luton's XG as a team at the moment, 10.2, which is actually 6th overall, so that probably could improve from tonight as well. So it's obviously pretty good for a promoted team. Well performing their sort of financial capital anyway. Nottingham Forest, 9.2 XG, which is 10th overall. So this is obviously the last 6 game weeks, 23 to 28, I think it is. XGC for Luton, 14.6, which is actually 20th overall. So their defense has been atrocious lately. And then Forest, 8.1 XGC, which is 7th. So they're basically mid-table for everything at the moment. So you would expect Forest should be the favourites, but obviously Luton at home have done okay, and they're obviously doing well scoring anyway. So Morris, your guy, I'm still surprised that he's 5.2 million. I can when I was looking at that earlier, I was like, he's 5.2. Like, he is an absolute bargain.
He's cheap, isn't he?
12% owned still, so he's still low owned, which is crazy too. The only Luton or Forest, he is the only Luton or Forest player in the top 10 for expected points for Gameweek 29. So at 4.4, he's the 6th highest scoring forward, which is obviously very good for a promoted team. Gameweek 23 to 24 for forwards, he's had 13 shots, 4 big chances, an XG of 2.99, which is really good. Key passes of 8, 2 big chances created, and an XA of 0.59. He's expected points of 29 versus actual of 36. So, he's actually overperforming, but he's got decent fixtures obviously tonight, and this Forest game is obviously pretty good for him as well. So he's got fixtures to keep it up. His shots are obviously quite low, like 13 shots compared to kind of like other form forwards at the moment. Like Watkins got 21, Muniz Fulham's on 27, and then Haaland obviously on 31. So compare that to 13 shots. He's quite far down in that scenario. So it appears to be much better at home of late. So he's had, since game week 23, he's had 3 returns at home versus 2 away, but those 2 away was actually in 1 game versus Newcastle. So since game week 20, he's had 1, 7, 5, 11, 5, 8, 2, 8, 2, and obviously he's got tonight as well. Expected score to make it even worse for me, but I think he is a decent option on this. If you're looking at free hit or someone to bring in, Luton versus Forest seems like a good option. He's on penalties, obviously. Seems to be fully nailed on. Has a record of sort of going alternating games that he returns in, so it's probably tonight that he returns, and then he maybe doesn't in the blank game week. But at home he looks like he's a good option for sure.
I quite like as well for Morris, like, this is such an important time of the season for Luton, like from that point of view, as well as like as much as stats mean anything. The fact that they've got this game in hand tonight, I kind of expect, I don't know, maybe they'll get a point at best. I'd be surprised if they win away from home. But they're only 3 points behind Forest, and their goal difference is the same. Obviously, they play. I mean, if they win against Forest this weekend, they'll be out of the bottom 3, I think, obviously pretty much for the first time this season since like all the table is settled. So it's I think, I don't know how you factor or do X importance, but like it's a big game for them this weekend. And I kind of think there'll be a bit more on it because of that, and because they're going up against their closest relegation rival. So no, I do fancy them to come out swinging tonight in a game where they're probably not expected to get something, and then set up a juicy one this weekend.
Makes sense for them to try and attack it tonight and try and get a win. If they can get out of the bottom 3. I was expecting them to be relegated, but I didn't realise they were that close to Forest. So interesting. And then
Doctor, you've got, haven't you?
Yes, I do. He's 4.7 million, 16% owned. Since game week 22, which everyone pretty much got into him, which I did as well. He's been pretty rubbish, obviously, for these great run of like fixtures and doubles. He's had 3, 1, 1, 0, 5, and 2, and obviously that one return was against Aston Villa. I think it was at home.
It was,
and I benched him for that, so that's classic. But before that run of terrible points, he got 6, 5, 9, and 9 in a row. So that's just just classic FPL for you there. So his stats are actually still pretty good. Game week 23 to 28 again. Shots 9, which is first of all defenders. Big chances 0, XG of 0.44, 17 key passes, which is first again. One big chance created, an XA of 1.27. So yeah, for a promoted team defender
that's not
to
bad,
to be top 4 shots and key passes, like that's like remarkable, really, like outstanding from him, to be honest. Like you just really wouldn't expect that usually, and like a Luton defender or a promoted team defender to be like an option and like in most people's teams and to be at top of the stats is just crazy. However, like as I've mentioned, like he's had really good stats, but his promise just hasn't been fulfilled recently. At least he's had 12 points in 6 weeks. You know, before that he was obviously doing well in that run, but yeah, since then it's been downhill. Their defense has just gotten worse and worse. Like I said, their XGC is 20th in the league at the moment, so expect Bournemouth to score this weekend. I expect Forest probably score against them as well. So like you're only picking him probably out of like effective ownership of just like expecting him to like cover points, I guess. But yeah, it's tough with him at the moment. I'll be selling as soon as I can, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a shame really, because like you say, but he like surprised me when I was debating another like hit to get him in for this game week. Like when you look at who like the creative outlet and how many routes to points he does have, like with his corners and his free kicks, he's just cleans up everything there, and like seems like no one else gets to look in. So you'd think he's got multiple avenues there, but obviously because he's Luton are just not good at converting his chances. Like Morris could have had one at the weekend against Palace and from a Doherty cross, and yeah, I feel like they're just not good enough in defence to justify his inclusion. I mean, he's set 4.7 million doesn't sound like very much, but you know, it's almost like 0.3 or 0.5 more for an Arsenal City defender, considering how like condensed everything is this season. It's obviously once we get out of this blank phase, I don't think many people are gonna have him for the run-in, to be honest.
Yeah, so maybe an unfair comparison, but like White at Arsenal has got like 42 points in the last 6 weeks compared to like Doughty's 12. And obviously that just like he's had less XA, he's had less shots and etc. It just goes to show that like clean sheets really are the bread and butter for defenders in FPL.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anyone worthwhile on the Forest side of things? I've not really been like, obviously you and I are looking at this for who are we going to get in to complete our lineups, because at the moment it looks like neither of us are free hitting, so it's probably worth stressing that. So I don't know if either of them are worth, but perhaps they are against this defence.
Okay, so Elanga, 5.1 million, 2.2% owned. So he's obviously a very good differential for this week. Highest scoring Forest player on 97 points, which puts him equal with Kudus, surprisingly. 1 point behind Rashford, and that puts him 28th for all the mids. So Rashford is obviously not having a good season. Kudus has been a darling for some people this season. And yeah, he's like sort of lacking behind as well. Obviously he didn't kind of really start the season, but still. Highest expected points for a Nottingham Forest player in 29 with 4.2, which is actually 13th expected points for the week, which is only 0.2 behind Morris. So not bad in that sort of scenario. His stats have been 9 shots, 7 big chances, which is first of all mids, is crazy for a Forest player and Elanga. Like you would not expect that. 7 big chances first. XG of 2.73, which is 5th as well. So but his expected assist sort of stats go a little bit downwards. 5 key passes, 1 big chance created, XA of 0.48. He's at 5.1 points average per start. He didn't start last week, but I expect he probably will this week. Expected points of 30 versus the actual of 20. So he does obviously like a big chance of this 7 that he's getting, but he likes to miss them clearly. So 1, 2, 2, 6, 7, 2, 1, 0 over the last since game 20, I think that is. His stats are marginally better than Gibbs White, that I'll talk about in a second, but barely. So, but he does seem to be the one that's sort of going through on the sort of counterattacks. They've been playing better teams than them, and they've been looking at counterattacks. So maybe Elanga doesn't get that space in a game versus Luton. Gibbs White 5.7 million, so 6 million, 0.6 million more expensive than Elanga, but 1.9% owned, so a differential again. 3.7 expected points, which puts him a long way down the list of expected points for this week. he's actually below most goalkeepers for this week. Like
Really?
he's even below Burnley defenders for
Okay,
the
that's a no
expected
then.
points. But he's had 9 shots, 1 big chance. Is obviously a big difference compared to 7. XG of 1.2. I imagine that might be from a penalty, which is covering most of that XG. 11 key passes, which is quite good. 3 big chances, great, not bad. XA of 0.89. Expected points of 21 versus actual of 18. So he's sort of performing where he's expected. Like his numbers, to be honest, are kind of like pretty similar to Elanga's, but the upside for him is really just penalties.
Has he even had any this season, to your knowledge? I can't clearly remember that he's had.
I
maybe
think he's
more
probably
than
like one or two. Yeah, they're not getting many, are they? So, but I feel like Elanga might be someone who could be getting those penalties for them.
I mean, if you look,
I don't know.
If you talk about the point, I suppose if you're on a free hit, it looks like or sounds like to me like Elanga and Gibbs White are almost too punty when you've got like Spurs mids there and West Ham and Villa mids. They're probably like the next one down. I don't. But
I think if you're going for 5,
if you're going for 5,
like maybe one of them is that final spot. I think most free hits that I've seen is a Forest midfielder taking up like the first slot on the bench, which I guess sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I'd rather have like a Iwobi against Spurs. I feel like he seems to be playing out of his mind since he's come back from AFCON. But yeah, sorry, to go back to Morgan Gibbs White, I think the fact that he has got penalties as well obviously makes him a slightly juicier pick. But is that like 1 return in 8 games?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. 2, 1, 7, 2, 4, 2, 2, and 0 since game week 21. 1 return in 8. Yeah, not good.
No. So I don't suppose you look at obviously, just talking specifically about this game, are you thinking about any additions or anyone extra who you're prioritising to bring in?
I think because I'm, as far as later, like possibly not free hitting now. I need to think about who I'm selling Solanke for. I think it is for this week. So I am considering Morris. Obviously, this seems like a good matchup on paper. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I will be looking at any of them. It's when I'm only going to be getting out like 7 to 8 players max. Like a Forest midfielder is not one I'm looking at, or the defenders. Not in any notes about the defenders. Not interested.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's good to talk about these players for people that are like maybe on free hit to consider them, because I do think looking at Luton's defence, there's a chance for Forest, and it is such a big game. If the pressure does get to Luton, those two are going to be the ones that are returning basically. Let's talk about Burnley-Brentford, because I feel like there's maybe only one player who's of interest in this game, but I'll talk about, or maybe 2, but I'll talk about a few options. I want to get your thoughts on Tony in a moment. But I've done the numbers on both. So just looking at Burnley specific, their last win was 10 game weeks ago. They've got lowest XG of all teams at home across the season, so even lower than Sheffield United, 14.5. They've got expected goal average of 1.04. So, that boosts, even though Brentford aren't particularly good at the back, it does boost Brentford's chance of a clean sheet in this one. Their average expected goals conceded at home is actually relatively low, considering they've been battered recently by Arsenal, and Tottenham also scored like 5 or so earlier in the season there. So their average at home per game is 1.49, which actually puts them 12th of all teams. So that's not terrible. So that's better than Spurs, Man United, Wolves. So that kind of suggests that even though they're not scoring, they're not likely to get battered, like more than 2 goals, basically. So, you kind of look at, basically, if you look at Brentford's numbers and Burnley's numbers, which are, sort of put them together, you'd kind of expect that Brentford are definitely going to score no more than 2, and maybe more the app math shows about 1.5. So, difficult to recommend any Burnley players. I had a quick look. Fofana might be of interest at like 0.5% ownership if you feel really tickety-boo on a free hit, but yeah, he's got the most shots to the box of all Burnley players. He's got the highest XG, but it's 0.4 total across 4 games, which is absolutely dreadful. And Trafford, their goalkeeper, you talked a minute ago about goalkeepers being potential good points for the free hit, but yeah, his numbers are awful as well. Average of just 1.9 points per home game this season, and his average of 3.5 saves per 90 is there, so that's not bad. That puts him like quite respectfully amongst some other goalkeepers. But you know, it's I'd say there's better goalkeepers for this week, and yeah, I don't really feel like Burnley are worth investing. Brentford, on the other hand, away form this season, so they're 10th highest for XG, so that's about mid-table. Like I say, 1 point XG per game average, so you'd expect that they'd score up to 2 goals in this game. Their average expected goals conceded away from home is 1.6. So kind of, again, based on Burnley and their stats, you would expect Burnley to score 1 goal in this game. So you'd maybe a 2-1 finish. So maybe, again, like you mentioned earlier, no clean sheet for either. And then looking at the Brentford players, like none of them are that exciting. It kind of ties in with their current league position and recent forms. They've lost 4 losses in their last 5. Kind of does make sense given they've played Arsenal in that time, Liverpool, and I think they played City as well. So you kind of expect that, but generally, even over a longer period, they're not looking that good. So Tony, to get your input on, so he's 11% owned, and you talked about covering players. I do think if you're going to cover this game, he's obviously the one to look at. But 11% ownership is only like 1 higher percent at the moment than Morris. In fact, I think it's 1% lower, than Morris, who's up at 12 now. Last 4 games, he's had the most shots in the box, 8, and big chances, 3 of anyone else in that Brentford team. 16 expected points, puts him the highest of all Brentford players. So, you know, he's more likely than anyone else to return points. No free kicks taken in the last 4 compared to Gulian's 4, and even he missed that game against Arsenal. The interesting stat, which I was a bit like about, is since he's come back, he's averaged just 4.2 points per game away from home. So 2 goals and 1 assist. So I'll mention this now because I'm obviously I'm looking at a striker as well, and I was trying to look at like who's got good numbers in their respective home or away fixture. And if you compare that across, you know, I'd say most of the non-template picks that we're going to be looking at this week, it's lower than Morris in the last 4 games, and interestingly, it's also a lot lower than Muniz for Fulham. He's, you know, I'll talk about him in a bit later when we talk about that game, but he's actually averaged 11.5 points per game at home in the same space of time, 4 goals and 1 assist. So appreciate they've played different teams, but yeah, it's over a long period and his away form has not been good. So I don't know, how do you sit and view Tony for this game week?
It's really hard to rate him because of his fixtures have been really difficult. I don't know. Like, he's the one I think I would probably go for, but at the same time, like, they've not really played many teams that are sort of around them that they're expected to beat. Like, are they going to be good if they have to create the chances themselves, if they've got most of the ball? I don't know. Like, I feel like Burnley are probably going to try and win the game, so maybe it'll make it a bit more open. This is probably one that Burnley will try and target. So maybe he does get more open. Maybe for that Ramsdale save, like, he could have had an absolute wonder goal, and everyone probably would have been bringing him in for sure this week with Tony. So yeah, it's fine margins. The fixtures and the context are important on him, I think. So I don't know. He's probably the favourite for me. Is he the favourite for you to come in?
I think he's probably the most. Like historically reliable rather than short-term reliable. Like, admittedly, his away games have been difficult. I mentioned he played Arsenal, West Ham, Wolves, Spurs, and Palace. Oh, not Palace. So
City,
yeah. He's, you know, he's had some tricky games there, and so maybe it's not a surprise that his points per game average is so low.
It feels like someone like Muniz who has all those great stats, but it just feels like is he going to do it in this game where you punt on him? Whereas, like, I don't know, it feels so scary to go with someone like him, especially in just like, the 1 week where, like, if you go for him, that means you don't have the other guy, sort of thing.
True, absolutely. And I think as well that you do make a good point. I feel like for people who aren't free hitting, or even those that are, who are looking for the upside, I feel like Tony's ownership is going to go up even more ahead of this game week, and maybe covering off that ownership is the safest move in a game week where you may not have 11 players. So
yeah, I think on free hit, the front three, you'd be Watkins, probably Tony, and then it's one of Morris or Muniz, right? It's picking between those 3 for the last spot, or you go knock one of them out and go 5 in the mid, and that's difficult too. I mean, there's argument for 3 Spurs mids to go 5 in the middle as well, which is interesting. So
yeah, no, I think it's interesting. A lot of people in the chat are asking whether we're doing free hit or rolling. So it'd be interesting to hear how many people in the chat, or how many players people in the chat have got rolling into this game week. Like, we'll talk about our teams at the end, but we've both got at the moment fewer than 8, I think. So
yeah, people saying sleeping on Chris Wood, and DJ saying that, like,
yeah,
maybe I don't know. I don't think we are.
No, I don't know if we are sleeping on wood. All right, just
sleeping on a mattress myself.
Just on the final player on Brentford team is question mark, because he was out of the last game. Is just Reguilón, so yellow flagged. Obviously missed Arsenal. The report, I think, before that game was he should be back for Burnley. I don't know if you know any more than that, but
yeah, it was a minor hamstring.
Yeah, so I suppose it's a bit of a risk going there unless we get confirmation. But he's got the second highest XG actually in the last 4. XA in the last 4 of all Burnley players, with 0.36 total and 2 assists to show for it. He's taken corners and free kicks, so it does give him some set play and open play routes to points as well. And given what we said about Burnley being a bit shot shy, or a bit goal shy, I should say, at home, he would be a good pick, I think, probably on a free hit.
I think we need to hear from Frank to say that he's definitely fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before picking him, yeah.
I mean, if he was, in best case scenario, if he's fit, I think he probably would be in my team as the sort of all the wing backs that are playing this game week. Right, and if I didn't want to double up on Spurs wing backs, he'd probably be in.
I guess on a free hit, you can just pick him, start him. He either starts or doesn't, true, probably, and then you'll probably have someone on the bench that will be fine.
True, yeah, true.
But a bit more risky for us.
Yeah. What do you think score-wise? Do you think that's fair enough on this game? Like
a 2-1 sounds right. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on and talk about another game. Should we talk about West Ham Villa, one of the 2 juicy ones?
Yeah. So obviously this one, I think people will be targeting for goals, I would say. I think both defenses I would probably avoid this week, because it's probably going to be a little bit akin to the Spurs Villa one last week, where there should be goals from either side. Villa probably more likely to keep clean sheet, but probably not at the same time. So West Ham United's XG 7.65, which is 16th, which is not great, but 9 scored. XGC of 11.8, which is 15th, with 16 conceded. So about sort of where they're expected, I guess. Aston Villa's XG of 13.3, which is 4th of all teams, 15 scored. XGC of 10.9, which is 12th of all teams, with 11 conceded. So I'll just talk about Bowen. Yeah, so to me anyway, FPL troll. He's just, like, his points since game week 20 have been 3, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 20, 5 and 2. Obviously you got him for that week, amazingly. His hat-trick versus Brentford came from 3 shots, 3 goals. He had an XG in that game of 0.6, and he got 3 goals. An XG expected goal involvement of 0.68, and he got a hat-trick. Amazing. Burnley at home last week, one if not the worst defense in the league, of overall. Off the back of his hat-trick and assist in the previous week, he got 2 points. So against Burnley, which is amazing. So he got a pathetic 0.06 XG in that game.
Amazing.
0.1 XA and a 0.17 XGI after he just got an assist and then a 20-pointer the week before. And this is against Burnley. That's just shocking. Next person, Kudus, 6.8 million, 4.3% owned. So he's a nice differential if you wanted to go a different route. I'm sure most people will go to Bowen. But yeah, Kudus if you can fit him or want to go a bit differential. Since game week 22,
he's been playing better, isn't he? He just looks more involved.
I think he's a bit more consistent. So he's had 5-2, 1-1, 5-5-2. So more assists, sort of returning, every so often. Less trolly than I guess Bowen is, where he's good. But Bowen, I guess, is a bit more explosive. So he's actually had no goals since game week 18, which was versus Man United. I just wanted to look at the Bowen versus Kudus stats from game 23 to 28.
That, like, before we talk about the stats, did you see how he got robbed like the last game week for the Ings cross?
Oh yeah, the assist. Yeah,
that, I mean, if that was like any big or higher owned player, people would have been kicking off, and it would have made him more of a pick for this game week.
Yes.
I mean, they couldn't rightly say that the cross wasn't intended for Ings. It gets there and he scores. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's harsh.
That's harsh.
Yeah, it's just pissed. One that like FPL are getting away with there, aren't they?
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, sorry, yeah.
Yes. So yeah, Bowen versus Kudus stats, game at 23 to 28. So shots 11 versus 21. So Kudus massively ahead there. Big chances 2 versus 2. XG of 1.07 versus 1.34. So Kudus winning on XG as well. Key passes of 6 versus 7. So Kudus winning there. Big chances created 2 versus 1. So that's the only one he's actually losing in. XA of 0.6 versus 0.7. Expected points of 21 versus 21. And then actual points of 33 versus 16. So Kudus is beating on him on basically all of those stats. And Bowen's obviously got that massive hat trick out of absolutely nowhere. So I've got here fraud in capital letters.
Against the crap Brentford defence that was, who obviously playing away against the mighty Burnley.
Yeah, but he had that crap Burnley defence to play and get a hat trick against.
That's true, actually.
To me, it just shows that like these sort of huge hauls are just so like lucky in FPL. Like, and if you just don't get it on at the right time, it's just you're just gonna miss out. Like I think I've missed out on most of the huge hauls this season, unfortunately. As well, apart from Suns last week, which was nice. But that haul was a massive differential for people last week as well, or 2 weeks ago, like you, which I think has been a sort of catalyst for your season, hasn't it? To be honest.
Yeah, definitely. That Douglas Luiz weekend as well. But I just had a quick look. In the chat, Harry mentioned about Paqueta being a good choice, and I just had a quick look at his numbers. So in the last 5 games he started, he has actually had 5 returns. So yeah, maybe he's lower ownership than both. He could be a good shout.
Who was that? Paqueta.
Paqueta, yeah. And I just had a look at as well earlier when I was just doing the numbers of who's actually did well in the reverse fixture. This one, Villa won it 4-1. Douglas Luiz, your friend and mine, got 2 goals in that game. At Hald, Watkins also got a goal and assist, got picked up bonus, and Bowen scored as well from an Alvarez assist. So, yeah, it was high scoring, and I kind of expect it might be high scoring again because I feel like they're both in. Am I right in thinking they're both in Europe on Thursday?
Yeah, I think Gemma just said that in the chat as well. Yeah. Previous Thursday to Sunday turnarounds when he's played 90 on Thursday 3 times, he's blanked twice in the Sunday match. So
that's interesting.
That is interesting.
But I wonder if it'll make much difference.
That could certainly happen
Villa
again.
are also playing as well, and they've got a difficult game to win as well. So I kind of think that maybe that balances that out. Maybe
Villa don't really rotate much either, do they? No. And Villa, I think's a game is certainly in the balance as far as I know. I think West Ham lost 1-0 to Freiburg, so they certainly need to put a full team out. And then I think Villa was 0-0, wasn't it? Yeah, I think Villa's was 0-0.
And they're playing Ajax at home. I think that's
exactly.
Right.
So. They're probably both going to be tired teams. Probably an open game then, to be honest.
Yeah. So what do you think score-wise? Like 4-1, high scoring before.
I think it'll be harder for Villa to score loads this time because they're obviously away. Maybe like a 2-2, something like that.
I could see it be high scoring. How would you rank the let's just do a top 3. On how would you rank the best picks for West Ham and Villa? And I'll do the same as well.
So Watkins obviously first, and then I guess Bowen second, and then probably Douglas Luiz after that.
Oh, Douglas, I wasn't.
Unfortunately,
I thought you were going to say Bailey in at 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough. Like Bailey, Diaby's still there, and just like they have got that important game. And he's so fragile. I just feel like he might just be rotated for this one. That's a possibility anyway.
I kind of agree with you, to be honest. I think shout for Paqueta / someone like Ward-Prowse at 4th just because of, set piece. But yeah, I kind of agree with you.
Yeah, I did look at the kind of players like that. Like Souček's obviously got a goal recently. Like Ward-Prowse and Souček and people like that, just not worth looking at really.
No. All right, we should move on to the last game of the the game week. I say last game, the final matchup. So Fulham against Spurs. I'll just do the quick numbers on Fulham because we could get to hear about. I've not really once this week considered any Fulham player until I looked at Munez's numbers. So yeah, perhaps we'll recap that again. So for the Fulham, they got 3 wins in the last 5. Somehow lost against Wolves, despite the fact that they absolutely peppered the goal. Should have had, I think they had something like 20 shots in that game. So many good chances missed. I think if they'd won that one and they're looking at 4 wins in the last 5, you'd be thinking it's a team to invest in. I think they're going to give Spurs a good game as well. But 1.5 XG on average per game. And of their 4 home games, they blanked twice. So they're fairly reliable to score at home. 5 clean sheets at home this season is the second highest total of home clean sheets after Newcastle, and that's actually tied with City and Liverpool. So they're actually a lot tighter at home than I would have known until I really dived into that. So expected goals conceded of just 1.4 per game. So I expect they're going to make it difficult for Tottenham. And I think in the reverse game, I think remember they played well against Spurs, but they ultimately lost 2-0, and Maddison and Son returned. Fulham players then to look at. I think probably the top line takeaway for me would probably be Munez. So 3.2%. He's just having so many shots. 20 shots in the box in the last 4 game weeks. That's the joint most with Haaland. XG of 1.6 though puts him well outside the top 10. So he's getting a high volume of chances, not very good ones. 3 returns in the last 4 game weeks. 6 returns in his 6 starts since game week 23. You couldn't look at a bigger inform striker really in these games. So obviously Watkins aside, I think he's probably the most in form after that. So I like him, but I think not having Morrison with quite a lot to play for, and Tony because historical pedigree, which is stupid really, because I should probably look at recency form, and maybe Spurs are a better defensive team. He does come into my thinking. What I mean, we talked about him a moment ago, but are you to dip your toe there?
I think Jimenez is possibly he's close to being back. I'm not sure if it's for this game, but he might at least be on the bench. So that's something to consider about Munez's time of how long he's going to get on the field, I suppose. I feel like he's probably just been playing just until Jimenez is back, and then he's going to get benched as soon as that happens, which is scary. I don't know, it feels Spurs defense has not been good, so I don't know, Fulham is just one of those teams that I just don't really look at for FPL players basically ever. Apart from Andreas last season, their players are just they're not consistent enough. Apart from I guess this guy who at 4.5 million seems like someone we should just avoid because he's so cheap, exactly. And when's he gonna stop scoring? And that just feels like that's exactly what he is. It's just when is he going to stop scoring? Because this form can't continue.
I was totally ignorant to him as well. I watched him. I feel like I've obviously not watched a Fulham game recently or seen any of their highlights on Match of the Day kind of thing. But I spent some time just actually watching. And I thought he's actually got a bit about him. He's a bit of a presence up there, and he was. You can see why he mops up the chances because they play that 4-2-3-1 basically, and. What is it?
They have Rondon.
Yeah.
Salomon Rondon.
Exactly.
Used to be there.
Yeah, they got Willian, Harry Wilson, and Andreas, which none of them are really goal scorers. So they've all got to feed him, I suppose. So I do quite like him, and I'm a bit on the fence about bringing him in. But anyway, just on Tottenham then, and maybe this is reason to get him. Their average expected goals conceded away per game is 1.7. That's high. So that's higher than Brentford, who we talked about earlier. To flip that, it's actually quite surprising. They've kept the second highest amount of clean sheets away from home this season. So, I do think that the stats sort of counteract each other. But again, I kind of see a high scoring game in this one. Their XG is 11th highest of all teams, which is a surprise that it's so low. But they've got an XG over the last 4 games of 19. Sorry, I've got that wrong. In the XG of 11th of all teams over the season, that's right, away from home. They've got an XG of 19, but have got 30 goals on the road. So that's the highest overperformance of all teams in the league this season away from home when it comes to goals. So yeah, it's difficult to like judge Tottenham based on that because their expected numbers are so different to their actual numbers. But I think basing them on the eye test, you would expect them to be one of the.
I think they would
be
confident
teams
this weekend for sure.
Absolutely.
After last week, yeah.
With battered Villa, they've got like a clear objective. They've got no real distractions. They've got like 8 or 9 games left because they've had these blanks. They're just going in there to try and get in the Champions League, and this is a good game for them because if they obviously win, they put pressure on Villa, who have got West Ham as well this weekend, and it's going to go down to the wire between those two.
Yeah, I like Son. Glad I got into him. He's obviously the no-brainer captain.
Absolutely.
Glad I got into Maddison last week, so he's probably the decision why I've gonna not free hit now because I got onto him. Got onto him early.
Maddison might be a nice idea. It's just a shame it was for De Bruyne, but he's done well.
Indeed.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, you've got notes about Iwobi, but you didn't really mention him, and people are talking about him in the chat.
Sorry, yeah. No, well, since the only reason he sort of popped up, obviously because he's hauled recently, he's got the most points for all Fulham players in the last 4. I think it's just like 1 or 2 more than Muniz. 2 goals, 2 10-point hauls have obviously helped that, and because he's just such a beast on key passes, he's scoop bonus as well. So his underlying numbers from like a goal scoring point of view are not that impressive, but he has obviously notched 2. He's obviously just been clinical when he's had the chances. But 14 key passes over the last 4 game weeks is one of the highest sort of all mids who are playing in this game week. He's just looked like a bit of a different animal since he's come back from AFCON, and less than 1% owned of pretty much of all the players we've talked about tonight. I think he is the biggest differential, or the lowest owned player, if you like. So I think if I was opting for 3-5-2 on a free hit, I'd find space for Iwobi, obviously big differential, and I think he's got different routes to points, so I like him as well.
Cool.
And then just on Tottenham, you spoke about Son just a moment ago. Kind of think he's a no-brainer pick and captaincy this week. Average of 8.5 points away from home this season, the highest of all the players in like their respective home-way games in this game week. So I think that makes sense. Maddison, we've spoken about. He's almost a no-brainer pick as well. Since he's come back in 22, he's only blanked twice, 7-5, 1-2, 5-9. Both of those blanks in home fixtures, so he's done well on the road. Obviously, Tottenham have been the most invested team. If you go on like the main homepage of the fantasy site, I think 4 of the top 5 are all Spurs players: Son, Porro, Maddison, and Romero. So maybe covering them is a good idea.
I don't think necessarily the defense is something you should have to cover anyway. I think possibly Johnson as or Kulusevski or maybe Werner, but Werner's probably benched. But Johnson seems like someone who could be a decent third Spurs and a good differential as well.
I'm still hoping that somehow Richarlison makes a miraculous recovery and he pops up, but it's looking less and less likely. I'm gutted.
Possible. Yeah.
I'm gutted.
It's a shame for you. Yeah.
I just did some decent future planning with Bell and Richarlison. I thought they're going to be all right, and to drop from 10 double game week players to 8 is blank game week players is a bit of a poo, really.
Yeah, it's going.
All right. Is there any more we want to talk about, or should we talk about our teams?
Let's go on to our teams.
All right, cool. All right. I'll start this week because you usually start. We'll mix it up. So like I just mentioned, Richarlison and Bell have that rotting red flag. I think I've got 8 at the moment. So I'm probably going to make 2 moves and do a -4. So it obviously depends on whether Richarlison's coming back. I know Bell's not. I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to invest in defence because I just don't think anyone reliably is going to get a clean sheet, and even a -2 I can't picture many teams just getting a 2-pointer seems difficult. So if Richarlison's out, I will probably just play it safe and get Maddison for him because I do fancy Spurs to do well. And then the other question mark is what to do with Solanke. I think at the moment I'm probably leaning towards Tony being the pick, but depending on how I feel closer to the weekend, I maybe do Muniz. But I think that's pretty straightforward for me really. And then that'll leave me with 9 going into the game week, and I'll only be not playing 2 defenders, which given how shit my defender's been recently. Like, I had Saliba, Gabriel, and Gusto this week, so you'd kind of think there's at least, double-digit haul between, or double digits from all of them collectively, if that makes sense, and they get like 4 between them. So I'm not taking like -4s to get in some of the trash defenders that are playing this week.
Yeah, come on, big man, Charlie Taylor. Yeah, holding down the fort.
He really
Let's
is.
Go. Come on, lad.
It's him and Areola playing 2-on-2s at the back. So yeah, I think that's fair. I'm expecting another red arrow, but hopefully it's small if I cover off those high ownership players, and then we flex that wild card in game week 30, I think.
All right. Yeah, that seems safe. Yeah.
All right, let's have a look at your team. You don't have any. Oh, you got Nakamba, red flag. You could just play him. Imagine if he comes back this game week.
Yes, I suppose I probably will, to be honest.
Such clutch timing.
Yeah, so I'm on 5 at the moment. I'm going to take a -4.
I think there's a reason you could take a -8 to get another attacker. But anyway, yeah.
It's possible. But yeah, I just think because I got onto Maddison early, I just think 7 with not many chances of clean sheets. If I cover like Tony, maybe just get Foden to someone, maybe that -8. But I just think, yeah, I could save it. There's probably more upside for the potential 5 or 6 doubles in 34.
We're hedging our bets, really, aren't we?
Obviously, but I think it'll still be useful to have it. There will be some doubles in that week, that's for sure. So if I can just cover off the main people, expect a small-ish red arrow. I think that'll probably be worth saving it and gaining more points down the road in game week 34 and 37 as well. So. And the wild card or whatever, you can sort of like not look at gaming 34s because you can sort of just forget about that as well. You don't need to get loads of them for that. So, I think it's probably Tony going to be the pick for Solanke. And then otherwise, I don't
What's
know.
your other transfer? Yeah,
I haven't even thought about it actually. I guess it might be Johnson just to YOLO it and. Okay. Triple Spurs it.
Not Kulusevski?
No, I don't think so. Bowen probably makes the most sense, to be honest.
But you hate Bowen. You've got to get Kudus.
I don't hate Bowen. I hate him for his trolliness. I've owned him previously and he's done well for me, but like in other seasons, I don't like him for being a massive differential and getting loads of points the other week. But
funny. Okay. Yeah. All right. It's just gonna suck this game week because I'm expecting a red arrow, but anyway, it is what it is. I think all the moves make sense. All the moves make sense. All right. And we talked about wildcard briefly. Are you still thinking early 30s wildcard, or are you going to try and muddle? Well, not maybe muddle through.
I think so. 30 or 31. Yeah, it's probably the area I'm looking at.
You're a bit different than me because you've got Haaland in place already, whereas I have obviously got Captain Morris ready to rock.
Yeah, because obviously coming back from this is game week 30 where there's Arsenal face City, which is not great, but we'll see.
We'll see how it goes. All right, cool. I don't think there's any more to talk about really. Hope just looking forward to Luton against Bournemouth or Bournemouth-Luton tonight. Should we do a quick score? Did we do a score prediction? I think we did, didn't we?
For which?
For Bournemouth against Luton tonight. I don't think we did. I think we just said it'd be high scoring.
No, I was going to say 3-0. That's just stupid. Probably like 2-1 to Bournemouth, maybe.
Bournemouth. Okay. I'm going to say it's the same score as line the other night. I'm going to say, or the other day. I'm going to say it was 2-2. It's really funny. Like so everyone in the chat might not use it, but there's an app called SofaScore, and I don't know why it chose this weekend to like mess up, but it was just really funny. Like I was out and about and I had like this notification that, Solanke had that penalty save first half, fair enough. And then there was the notification, obviously, that he had his goal. And then a few minutes later, the VAR ruled it out. And I was like, oh, God, he's still not scored. And then like it was another few minutes later when they did actually score. SofaScore seemed to think it was Solanke for 10 minutes. And then later in the game, it was like it updated their scoreline that it was almost like oh no, it was in the Spurs game. That's right. That it was like 2-0 to Spurs in like the 85th minute, which it was in real life. And then I looked at it again, and it was 4-3 to Spurs. And it was like 92nd minute, and I was thinking, oh my god, imagine all these Douglas Luiz points I've just got out of nowhere. And of course it wasn't. So, maybe there'll be some sofa score drama tonight, and we can get some Solanke and Morris ghost goals, which would be exciting.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah, you do. Anyway, what am I gonna? 2-2. I'm gonna go for. I think Morris is gonna score tonight.
Yeah,
and Solanke's gonna score a couple. Right, that's it, isn't it? We've done it now.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll be back next week to talk about free hit and Fallout and game week and stuff. All right. Bye bye.
Yeah. Cheers all.
Bye bye.